name's Tricia Dixon. I'm part of Tech Knowledge Worldwide. I'm here today on this St. Patty's Day edition of the podcast celebrating women for Women's Appreciation Month. I'm here with Evann Rodgers of Moss Mill Brewery, and we're going to have a nice talk today about her running her business and all of the ins and outs of running a brewery. Before we get into the podcast, I do just want to plug TechFest 2023. It is a fundraising trade show where we're bringing people together to get some hands-on learning and experience with different tools. And you can find everything about the fest coming up at techfest.org. That's TEK fest.org. Evann, thanks so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate it. Obviously, we're in your brewery that you run with your husband. So tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and how you got started.
Yep, so we opened here in 2017. It's always been a pipe dream of ours, kind of. My background is in actually biotechnology and molecular biology, and I kind of used a lot of that science background to kind of get us where we are today. So I run the lab here, and then I run the marketing department, and then my husband does all of the operations.
Oh, that's so exciting. So when did you meet your husband?
2002.
Wow.
First day of college.
First day of college, wow.
Yes.
So you guys have really made it the long haul.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So was this a dream of yours even back in college, or like when did this
It
kind
started
of?
just after we got engaged, honestly. I bought him a beer kit, like most home brewers start, and we fermented beer under our kitchen table for about 2 years, and then he went to brewing school, kind of got the real knowledge under his belt for that, and then all went from there.
So you run the lab here, though. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what does that consist of in a brewery?
So we do everything from yeast propagation to kind of QCing the beers, making sure they're where they need to be. One of our big tenets here is really quality of the product. So in order to make sure the beer is what we want it to be, we do a lot of testing to make that happen.
Now, are there a lot of regulations around what is required as far as the brewery goes? And your QC and like your processes around that?
There really aren't. So it's kind of the Wild West when it comes to what you put in a beer product. Nothing in beer will ever hurt you, but it's just kind of what kind of off flavors you might get from what the processes that you're doing. And we're trying to minimize those in our products.
Got it. So what would you say was one of your first challenges going from that home brewery kit to a big tank at a brewery? I'm sure there had to be some growing pains there.
I mean, I think we did pretty good with the brewing aspect. I think it's the rest of the operations that were a huge learning curve for us. So really not just the brewing and making the beer, but then how do you sell it? How do you open a tap room? How do you run a restaurant? None of us had any experience with that.
Right, right. So what do you think when you first were getting started out were your biggest like lessons learned that you would give you would tell somebody who's just starting out?
I think the biggest thing you need to know is that it's not home brewing. So you can't just say, I make my 5-gallon batch and then it's magically going to be 15 barrels and wonderful. Everything needs tweaking, everything needs refining, and it's kind of a trial and error process because beer is a living organism too. It's not just like a cake, you put the same ingredients in, you get the same expected results out. It's always changing, always adapting.
So when you opened in 2017, did you open in this location and in with this size?
We did open here. We were not this big. We had, I'll show you later, we had just the downstairs space, which consists of 3 rooms. We've got the brewing room, what was the lab and office, and then the downstairs tasting room, which we crammed probably about 40 people in there at the time.
Oh, wow, that's great. And so what was the capacity for brewing when you first opened?
We were itty bitty. We were on the homebrew scale, brewing little half-barrel batches at a time.
Right, right. So, and how was it, how were you able to kind of pick up that initial business when you first opened up, when you're learning to market yourself?
So there's a lot of hype in new breweries, and I think we started at the right time of brewery expansion in PA. It's gotten a lot more crowded in the last couple of years, I would say. I think we're probably at about peak brewery at this point.
Right.
But we were still catching that wave of growth. So you get a lot of people to come in the door first, and then it's kind of figuring out how to market to those folks and make sure you get the right people to come in and see your product and actually have the same experience that you want to give them.
So when you first started, what types of flavors were you experimenting with? Were you just trying to keep it just as simple as possible, or were you really trying to be creative?
We're not super off the wall and creative here. We like to make beer. We don't do a lot of hazy New England styles. I will say we have an exception now. This week we just released our new Yobro Hazy IPA, which is kind of a play on.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yes, I will say I'm also the creative designer here too.
That was going to be one of my questions, because I've noticed that all of your brews have really, really creative names. Like, your labeling is very creative. So that's all you?
99%.
Does Nick give you any inspiration whatsoever?
He did come up with the Yobro name for this one.
Okay.
Yeah. So we typically don't do the hazy New England IPA styles. When we opened, we had 5 beers on tap, plain, simple. We had our Moss Mill Lager, which you're drinking, a wheat beer, an IPA, a brown, which I have, and then a stout.
So how many beers did you start with on tap, and how many do you have now?
We started with 5, and we've grown up to now 14 regularly.
Oh, that's great. What is your most popular?
Still our flagship IPA, Indecent Proposal.
Indecent Proposal, I love it. That's great. All right, so tell me a little bit about, after you first you started out in 2017, so you had a few good, how did you feel that you were doing as a brewery, fledgling brewery, when COVID hit?
COVID is always the big elephant in the room. I think at the end of the day, COVID was good for us. It kind of gave us a good kick in the pants to reset where we needed to be. We opened the room upstairs that we're in right now 2 months before COVID hit. So we quickly realized that 40 people downstairs was not going to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. We expanded to upstairs. Upstairs fits about 120.
Nice.
Which is a good added shot in the arm. And then 2 months later was COVID. We had to adapt very quickly at that point because everybody was not sure what was going on next. We wound up getting a canning line, which is how you see we have cans now.
Yep.
We then got our beer garden space, which outside we have a tent and we have fire pits and really nice place to kind of hang out, kind of like your own backyard, but
right.
Not here. And it's great here in the industrial park too because it's quiet on the weekends.
Yeah. So how quickly were you able to acquire or lease that outside space after COVID hit? Like, how quickly were you able to pivot to that outdoor arena?
Yeah, everybody was moving quick. I would say COVID was March with the actual regulations. We were shut for about 2 weeks. By beginning probably the second week of April, we had the canning line, and then we had the beer garden by end of May.
That's great. So for the canning line, so are you guys doing this in-house, or you send out your supply and then comes back
in-house.
Oh my goodness.
Little baby machine about the size of this tabletop. It's all done by hand, 4 cans at a time.
Wow, 4 cans at a time?
Yes.
So who gets that job?
We all pitch in.
Yeah, that's great. And so once you opened the canning line, so how would you say your sales have been? Were people really receptive to that?
In the beginning, yeah. And I mean, I think they still very much are. We have a nice little takeout spot downstairs. You kind of like walk by it as you leave, so as they go, or you're coming in just for takeout, which is nice.
So when you guys first opened, did you have a menu of food offering as well,
No,
or did you have to?
Trucks.
Oh, that's okay.
And that's another thing we've gotten since COVID, honestly. So with the COVID regulations in PA, you had to they mandated that you serve a meal in order to get a beer. I couldn't get food trucks to come reliably, so if they didn't show up the day, then I didn't have any beer to sell. So we decided to put a kitchen in.
That makes sense. I'm sure that was a huge investment.
That was probably the hardest of the undertakings, honestly.
Yeah. So did it take you, was the space available? Was there kitchen space here already, or did you really have to put something in?
So we built it in. What we did is we took the lab that was downstairs in the offices and we shifted them up here.
Got it. So what would you say, out of all of the things that you do, because obviously you wear many hats here, what would you say your favorite thing about this industry is and what you're doing?
I think my favorite thing in the industry is still the camaraderie that we all experience. It's still such a small niche industry that it's very friendly and everybody really is out to help each other, which is really great. I think my favorite thing to do is honestly the marketing, and that's just because that's the hat I love to wear the most.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. So your favorite hat here is marketing, but as I understand it, you wear many hats as far as your education and background. So obviously you said a little bit about it. So tell me more about your educational background, because as I understand it, you have a PhD. And should I be calling you doctor this whole time? Because I can pivot and do that.
I'm not that kind of doctor. Yeah. So we moved to the area, Nick and I. when I went to my graduate program down at Penn in Philly. I do have a PhD. It's in immunology, so it's kind of like the study of diseases and how your immune system fights them, and it's good for like medicine and that kind of background material to kind of understand that.
So you could have went a totally different direction during COVID, but you stuck with the brewery.
We were too far in to quit.
Too far in.
And too stubborn to quit.
Yeah, that's great. So we're a couple of years post-COVID now. Everyone had, their ups and downs. How are you feeling now, start of 2023? How do you feel your business is booming?
I think it is really picking up. It's really starting to take off. People are finally coming out of their shells, which is really great. I think the next couple months are going to be interesting with the economic uncertainties that are lying around, but I think otherwise, I think we're good.
Yeah, that's great. So let's go back a little bit to just the brewing in general. And I know we talked about, you don't like to go too crazy, but you do, mix up your flavors now and again. So who's really coming up with those ideas?
It's kind of a joint effort. I mean, a lot of times Nick will come up with something, but if we're out and about and trying new flavors, tasting things, we're all kind of going to pitch in. One beer we did recently was called Yum Bubble, which tasted like bubble gum. We had a beer from another brewery which had a couple off-flavor characteristics that were kind of cool. And it had kind of like it was a Belgian-style beer, so it had a bunch of like farmhousey notes to it. It had a bunch of kind of bubble gummy characteristics, and I said this would be really cool if you could do this on purpose and amp it up.
So when you get those ideas, I mean, are you dedicating an entire tank to that idea, or are you going back to like the homebrew kit and say, all right,
No,
let me
we're
see?
doing a whole tank at this point, but I mean, it's only 7 barrels, so again, beer can't hurt you if you do something crazy to it. We then will tweak it on the back end, and it'll still be fine.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so when Moss Mill first opened, were you a place that people could come and make sure they had Wi-Fi and different screens up to watch all the games? What did it look like from a technology perspective when you first opened?
We've really grown with the tech, and Ray's been really helpful with that, as well as the technology group. We started out just with the downstairs space, like I said before. We did have the 3 TVs and the projector screen, and we brought Ray in from the beginning in order to get the Wi-Fi that we needed to make sure it was going to run properly. It's been really great having it set on different channels, with the fact that we can run all our POS and all our back-end materials securely, but still have the Wi-Fi available to the public if they need it. That's great.
Would you say, just in today's day and age, things get really expensive, do you think having the updated technology, and I know over the New Year's break, you guys had some things done. Do you find a good return on investment?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's been wonderful being able to do it. We've done it kind of in upgrades. So Ray did our outside space, which is really key during COVID, actually, because it allowed us to take our POS systems out to the beer garden and actually be able to process sales, which is really great. And then with the new upgrades, it's been making everything more streamlined, making it kind of function a whole lot better, because it's been kind of, as we've grown and cobbled things together, it's been kind of cobbly almost, which makes sense. So it's been kind of good to be able to strip it all out and kind of start fresh with that.
That's awesome. And definitely as you're walking through, you can see the Libertas Consulting logos around. But definitely, Ray has had help as well from other members of the technology community, which is really awesome. I know over the Christmas break, we've had a few folks come in and lend him a hand because he definitely needs help. Let's just say that.
But he always knows who to ask.
Yes,
so.
but that's a good thing about technology, and I can just say that from being sort of an insider there, is that everybody is super welcoming. Really, there's like a really good camaraderie. So when Ray, needs help with something, a project like this, he can come in and bring, all hands in. So just a little bit about technology coming together. You and your husband were a central part of our community project this past September. So the church that we went into, Baraka Church, we brought them wireless, wired security, tons and tons of structured cabling. There was a lot of wires.
A lot of wires, a lot of cameras.
A lot of cameras, right?
But it was needed, and we're so appreciative of it.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you've heard members of the congregation or the pastor say about all the work that was done.
Everybody has really been very grateful, honestly. Not something that they could have done on their own, but something that they really needed. They needed to be able to get that security in place. We have key fobs on all the doors now, so we know it's the building secure at night. We're able to kind of lock the kids' space doors, which is really peace of mind for me as a parent. And then we have all the cameras now, so we kind of know what's going on where.
That's great. That's great. And for 2023, we're going to be looking to do a similar community project. Undecided where yet, but we're hoping that wherever we go, it brings a lot of meaning and usefulness to wherever that is. So I want to pivot just a little bit, and let's talk about Evann the person, right?
Okay.
So you've been married to Nick since when?
2001.
Okay. And you said, and you're a parent. How many kids?
Two.
Two.
I have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, soon to be a 5- and 6-year-old.
Oh my goodness. So one's in kindergarten, one's going into kindergarten?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
It's a good age.
Yes, it's a fun age because they're definitely like little grown-ups, right?
The one thinks she's full grown, but yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. So do you have a son and daughter?
I have one of each, yes.
That's perfect. That's perfect family. So who's the oldest?
My son is older, yeah.
Oh boy, but does your daughter kind of?
She's in charge of everything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I find that that's really how it goes. Whether it's the daughter's the firstborn or the secondborn, it's just she's going to be in charge, and so it's good because then your son's prepared for later in life when.
Yes, but he is fiercely loyal and will defend her to a fault, which is great too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where do you call home? Like what general area?
We live in Cheltenham, so right near the church, actually.
Oh, that's great. So how did you end up with the brewery way out here?
It's not that far. It's like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we looked for a place that was still industrial park because the rent is much cheaper. And then we were looking for a place we could grow, basically.
Now, you're sort of tucked away a little bit, as you said, in an industrial park. Have you thought about ever expanding like outside of this area or someplace with more foot traffic, anything like that?
We're actively looking, honestly, for more spaces to be. We have a collaboration with a food truck partner who we're going to be at on the Brynathan, basically. It's called the All Board Cafe.
Oh, that's so
we'll
exciting.
We'll be there this summer and then hopefully expanding that into a full-time opportunity.
Oh, so I have to ask because, I go to the Jersey Shore in the summer. Have you ever thought about, hey, summertime Jersey Shore?
We've thought about it, and I mean, we went down to visit our Nick's family last weekend, and we actually talked to a couple of the bars in the area. And since Moss Mill is actually one of the roads in South Jersey, it would make a lot of sense. So it is on our short-term plans, but still a little bit further out.
Got you.
There's a lot of regulations when you go into a new state. A whole new set of licensing, and yeah, it's a lot.
So speaking of that, I know that, at least I think I know, that breweries have a unique set of, laws that they're abiding by versus just a regular bar, that are selling cans and bottles that they're not brewing. So tell me about some of the differences in Pennsylvania between a brewery and running a bar.
Yep, so as a brewery, so the way Pennsylvania typically works for liquor licenses, you buy it, and then you hold on to it like an asset, like a house or something, or a piece of property. The way a manufacturing license works, which is what we have, is we pay a yearly fee, and it lets us operate with that, but it comes with stipulations. One of the biggest ones is that we can only sell PA-produced products, and we can only sell items that we make on site to go.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you find that concept more restrictive than, say, buying a liquor license and being able to handle everyone?
I don't think so. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the costs are going to be the same either way. I think it's actually feeds nicely into the fact that it's such a collaborative community. So then we partner with distilleries, we partner with local wineries, and we all kind of work together to foster the locally produced industry.
That's great. So as you're finding partners to collaborate with for different things, what other products are you bringing in besides the things that you're brewing in-house?
So we have everything from wine to cider to liquor to mixed drinks, and like sodas and things, of course, too.
Right. So patrons who can come to Moss Mill, then they can expect whatever they're getting, whether it's wine, spirits, ciders, all of that is made in PA.
Correct.
Oh, that's so exciting. Do you have favorites that you partner with or people that are your go-tos?
Yeah, so most of our liquor comes from Boardroom up in Lansdale. The wine comes from Bishop Estate up in Percy. And then the ciders are all from Stone and Key. They're over in Montgomeryville.
Okay, so really, really local.
Really local, yeah. Something that we can get fairly easily. And if you try it here, you like it, you can go visit them and try it more from them.
That's exciting. And how have you been able to develop those partnerships? Is this something that you just you happen to see one of their locations and you're like, hey, I like their, whatever they have. How are you fostering those relationships?
It's just kind of over time and visiting them, honestly. We all support each other, and you just figure out who everybody is, and you talk and you work together to lift up the whole industry.
That's exciting. So let's go back a little bit to your work in the lab here. So what kind of things, so I know that you're doing the quality control and you're, explain to me what are you doing? What actually happens when you're doing this, right? Do you have your lab coat on and some goggles? Like I want to picture this.
Yeah, so one of the big things we do is yeast quality. So we'll take samples from the fermenters, we'll check viability, see whether or not the yeast are still alive. We'll check generation counts on them. We'll see kind of pitch rates for what we should be putting into the next beer. And we'll check for off flavors too for beer as we go through the process, kind of doing a lot of sensory testing for that. So a lot of that is just tasting it, seeing what tastes good, what doesn't taste well, looking for the off flavors that the yeast can produce, and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay. Any challenges with that? How do other breweries have? Basically,
not many breweries our size have a lab.
I was going to say, do other breweries have labs, or are you guys unique because of your background in education?
I think it's fairly unique for somebody our size. Usually you get to the size of about a Yosemite Creek, which is probably about 3 times our size before you get a lab.
Okay, so you're ahead of the game, ready for expansion. You've got everything nailed down. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit again about your the things that you're doing here at Moss Mill. So I know, because I've been a part of one and I've been to a couple charity bingo events that you have, and I think it's
we run charity bingo the 3rd Sunday of every month, and it's always a new local charity that we support. It was a good way for us to kind of give back to the community. Brings in a new set of faces who maybe haven't been here before, so it gives us exposure, and then it gives the charity a shot in the arm, honestly, that they need. And it gives them the exposure from our clientele as far as who they might want to be supporting in the local community. Again, it's all bringing all those people together to kind of support the society as a whole.
Yeah, no, that's great. And for those of you who don't know, Moss Mill did hold one of the charity bingo events for the Technology Community Project, again for Baraka Church, which was really great and really fun. We had so much fun with all of the raffles and the bingo, so it was great. What other types of events do you have here?
We have events all the time. So we have music every Friday, Saturday night. We just started open mic night on Thursdays, which has been really popular. And then we do bigger events too throughout the year. We've got car shows 3 or 4 times a year. We're doing a market. So we've got all big outside space. We set up all vendors out there. We have a big Oktoberfest at the end of September.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. And then we do Fire and Ice Festival between Christmas and New Year's. Which we bring
yes.
And, that one's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I was at that last one, and I can attest it's a lot of fun. So what do you have coming up in the end of March and April? Anything big? You, every 3rd Sunday, I know, charity bingo events. So anything else that's unique?
At the end of this month is honestly, it's still our kind of slow season. So we're ramping up to get the outside beer garden open. The idea is to relaunch it April 1st with a kind of fresh coat of paint. And other than that, this month is just charity bingo. Oh,
that's awesome. So that's really great about updating the outdoor space. And April 1st is really just around the corner because we're the 17th already. So the way you said it, it seemed like so far, I was like, no, that's really not that far away.
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks. So how much of your time would you say is dedicated to running this brew? Like, you're a business owner. This is not a 9-to-5. So what does your average day look like?
That's a good question. I think it varies depending on the day. Days we're open, I'm here pretty much open to close. My mother is great. She watches the kids for us. We could not do it without her. So you need that support system always. On a typical weekday, I'll spend about maybe 4 or 5 hours doing brewery stuff. I'll spend another 2 hours doing day job stuff because I still do have a part-time day job. And then the other, 2 hours left, I'll spend organizing my day or getting the kids ready or spending time with family.
So how has running this business impacted your time with the kids and you're getting them out the door or doing homework for your kindergartner, soon to be 1st grader and then kindergartner?
It's been a struggle, but it's been manageable at this point. We just hired a new tasting room manager, which has taken a lot off of our plates as far as needing to be here on site all the time. So that's been really helpful for like Fridays, and he works on Sundays too, which is good. So then we get to spend Sundays now as a family together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good.
Do you ever bring the kids on site just to run around?
They come once in a while. They're still a little rambunctious, so when they get rowdy, they typically leave.
They get
Try to set a
86.
good example.
They get
Yeah.
86.
But we do get a lot of families that come through.
Yeah, yes, you do. It's a really great space because it is like a nice, really nice atmosphere. I've seen plenty of people here with kids. My kids are a little bit bigger, thankfully, so I don't have to worry about them running around. But it really is a nice family-friendly atmosphere, especially with the outside beer garden. And you guys allow pets here too outside?
Pets are welcome outside in the beer garden.
Leashed?
As long as they're well behaved, they're fine.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yep, we can't have them inside due to health
Mhm.
regulations, but outside we're more than welcome to have them.
Okay. Anything else that you're excited about that's coming? Any new brews that are waiting?
I mean, our newest one is the Obro. We just released Lost in the Orchard too, that we do in collaboration with Shady Brook Farms. We do a lot of beer collaborations.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep.
Love
so
Shady
they're
Brook.
local,
Mhm.
they're a local
Luke Farm. Mhm.
honestly. They have big events there. They have apples in the fall. They do corn mazes and light shows. And they're also a winery. We got their apples and we basically brewed a wheat beer with their apples and some cinnamon, and it's pretty tasty.
Oh, that's so exciting. So how did you come up with that collaboration, right? You're like, hey, Shady Brook, give me some apple. Like, how does that?
It starts with a beer collaboration. So they buy beer from us. We say, hey, we've got great ideas. Do you want to potentially partner and make something bigger and maybe have your own beer? And it goes from there.
And so when you do something like that, how are you labeling it? So do you label it so people know, like, hey,
Yep.
these come from Shady Brook?
Yeah. So it says it's clearly on this one just a collaboration with Stone's Throw Pub, which is their on-site bar,
Oh, that's
and then us, which is good. We also collaborate with Covered Bridge Coffee Roasters. So they do all of our on-site coffee. We do their cold brew for them, and then we have a beer called Ethiopian Queen, which is our IPA with their coffee in it.
Oh, nice. All right, so tell me a little bit, changing a little bit, about your Collaborators Club that I know that you have. What does that mean? What are you getting out of it?
Yeah. So the Collaborators Club has morphed a little bit over the years. I think we've refined it, and it's actually in a really good spot this year. It's a fairly decent price point, and you wind up getting, we do it basically to foster connection with the community. You wind up getting more ounces per pour, like most mug clubs. We do a party for everybody in the year. And of course you get swag because we
Everyone-
want to promote our brand.
Yeah, and everybody loves swag.
Yes. Yeah, and then we poll them for ideas and events throughout the year.
Nice, that's great. All right, so now we're gonna do just a rapid fire round of questions, right? First thing that comes to mind, favorite social media site?
Instagram,
All right, favorite drink?
Manhattan.
Nice, all right, favorite technology community member?
Ray, of course.
Oh my God, cut. We'll cut that out later. All right, and then just to round out the interview, what is your absolute best memory about opening your business up until this point?
I think it's getting to work with my spouse on a daily basis.
That's awesome.
Because we started as best friends first, and we still magically are.
That's great. That's really great. I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Evan, and we really appreciate your time, and it was
Thank
great
you so much
talking
for
to you.
coming.
Yeah.